What's up YouTube? Jim Comics here. With Halloween coming up, I decided to try something pretty unique, and I've come up with a horror game concept for 10 Nintendo franchises. Nintendo is obviously a very family-friendly video game company, so I thought it'd be really special and out there to try and convert franchises like Pokemon or Star Fox into horror games. So here are my pitches. Not all of these will be mature games, and I won't go too in-depth for each of them, like I have for my Punch-Out Switch pitch video, which you should totally check out. But, if the comments really like one of these pitches, I can make a full-length video going over the idea. Before we start, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below any Nintendo horror game pitches you come up with. Without further ado, let's get right into this list. First up, we have to convert Nintendo's most famous franchise, Super Mario, into a horror game. And I think I have a really good idea here. My pitched game here is called The Bagpipes, a spin on the Backrooms meme creepypasta. You'll play as Mario exploring the underground sewer zone from a first-person perspective. Your only weapon is a flashlight, sort of like Luigi's Mansion, but without the poltergust, and you have to make your way through the bagpipes to get to Peach's castle for cake. However, the pipes are infested with mostly piranha plants, sprawling all throughout and chasing you, with a couple of Boos and Nabbit, who would look really creepy with a redesign, thrown in there. You have no way to harm the enemies, but your flashlight stuns them. Attacks from Boos or Nabbits would decrease your flashlight battery but not hurt you. However, piranha plants would instantly kill you with a gruesome animation, where they swallow you whole. Sort of like the Chomper eating animation in Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, and like the Garden Warfare games, but way more bloody. The piranha plants would constantly creep around the sewers, with pipes and blocks sticking out everywhere, which you'd have to hide behind. Their main design would be based on them in 3D World, with their long extending vines, but they would be red here, not purple. There could be some purple variants though. The bagpipes would be dark except for the shine of your flashlight and the occasional gleam of pipes, adding to a dreary atmosphere. At the end, you'd have to sneak past Petey Piranha Plant without getting caught or he'd crush you to a pulp. The game would be a lot like Little Nightmares. The next game on this list is from the Legend of Zelda franchise, and it would basically be a normal Zelda game, a remake of Majora's Mask, but more mature and with a bigger focus on jump scares. Majora's Mask is already a very disturbing and tragic game, but as one gets older, it's really not that scary, so this remake would convert it into a real nightmare. Also, don't worry, this is the only remake on this list. The rest of these games are original. The Skull Kid would be redesigned to be more scary and deadly, sort of like how he looks in Twilight Princess, but perhaps worse. The game's visual design would be similar to Twilight Princess, as aforementioned, but now with blood and guts. The Redeads would be redesigned to look something like Nemesis in Resident Evil, and the moon's face would look a lot less goofy. The mask transformations would be terrifying, with freakish cutscenes and disturbing character designs for the Deku, Zora, and Gorons. The Zora would look a lot like the creature from the Black Lagoon, but blue, and the Gorons would look like giant trolls from Lord of the Rings or something. I can't think of a creepy design for the Dekus, but they already look pretty disturbing as is, and would just need to look more realistic. Finally, the masked salesman would look more intimidating and like a creep than he already does. Metroid is pretty much 1 degree away from being a horror series, so I didn't have that much work to do here. My pitch for a new game would be basically Metroid Prime, but as Zero Suit Samus, and with a lot less weapons. This would be a new entry called Metroid Stalker Zero. Samus would be healing from a previous mission, so in her Zero Suit, on a Federation ship. I'm not sure how this fits into the lore or timeline, so comment down below if you know where it could. But it gets invaded by space pirates, and most of the hunters on board get killed and the power goes off. Samus now has to crawl through vents around the ship and use nearby items as weapons to sneak and fight her way to her power suit, so she can decimate the pirates and make it out alive. For added stakes, there can be something important on board the ship, like a vaccine for a space parasite sweeping the galaxy. Halfway through the game, Samus would find her signature Zero Suit taser from Smash, and near the end, she'd retrieve her power suit and go on a spree, killing all of the pirates left and taking on their leader. This game would probably not have to be rated M. I mean, it could be rated T like the Prime games, and I think that's the way to go. The pirates wouldn't feature many previously established Metroid villains, but perhaps a few bounty hunters from before, like Psylocke. The game would play out very similarly to Alien Isolation. It would only last a couple of hours, so it wouldn't sell for full price, in my dream world at least, even though Nintendo would probably charge that. I think Pikmin was an extremely easy franchise to create a horror game out of. My pitch is called Pikmin Survive, and would follow the format of Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th. The game would focus on multiplayer, with 4 players playing as captains, selecting from 5 options: Olimar, Louis, Alf, Brittany, and Charlie, while 1 or 2 players play as creatures, from an Emperor Bulblax, Burrowing Snagret, Shaggy Longlegs, Behemoth Vosbath, or plays Marais from Pikmin 3. The captains would be trying to survive with 2 options available: either gather enough parts to build their ship, the Hogotate, and escape, or collect enough Pikmin to kill the creatures. To win, the creatures would have to, of course, kill the captains, and when they attack, a cutscene of them eating the captain would play. The creatures would have only either 1 day, easier mode, or 1 night, harder mode, to kill all of the captains, or the match would end in a draw. There would be a good amount of maps, each featuring different biomes, and like I mentioned, 2 modes with either day, easier for the captains because the creatures don't have minions, or night, easier for the creatures as they can control an army of enemies and send them out, reminiscent of the actual Pikmin gameplay. For incentive, players could earn skins for their captains and creatures, and there could be a quarterly battle pass and seasonal events, if Nintendo wanted to do so. In a hypothetical world, this game would be free of Switch Online, but if not, Nintendo would release it virtually for $10. The game wouldn't even have to be rated M, as it would still work really well with a T or E10 Plus rating. I think this game would legitimately be really cool, and if there's any pitch on this list that I could further flesh out in a video, it would be this one. I just think it would add so much to the Pikmin franchise if we got a chance to see what goes on at night and get a good spin-off in a different genre. Splatoon will also have a multiplayer horror game, since it befits the main series, and it would be based on the Left 4 Dead game style. The player would play as a squad of Inklings and or Octolings, with there being 8 weapon classes, 4 Inklings and 4 Octolings, and would fight off hordes of Octarians, Salmonids, and Mammalians, as well as bosses from the series, such as Tartar and DJ Octavio. The player would unlock different costumes and would level up each class to get upgrade stats for that weapon type. Like Pikmin Survive, this game, called Splatoon Flood of the Fresh Eaters, because it sounds funny I guess, would be E10 Plus or T, as I see no need for it to be M rated. Now that I think about it, it would basically be Salmon Rush but without the eggs. So with that in mind, the game could be played from the first person perspective to differentiate it from the mainline Splatoon games and make it more like Left 4 Dead. That's about it for this pitch, and I think Nintendo could not get away with charging full price for it, because people are already against buying Splatoon free for $60. WarioWare gored games, sort of like board games but with gore, would literally just be WarioWare but rated M. The micro games would feature horrific imagery and more of a Halloween theme. The 9-volt Nintendo stages would be extremely fascinating, pulling from creepier, mature Nintendo series and games like Fatal Frame, Zombie U, Eternal Darkness, and Geist. That's about all I have to say about this pitch. I mean, this game would make sense for the Switch, as it would return to the original style where the player doesn't play as a character, and is essentially just more WarioWare. This is one of my favorite pitches, an Advance Wars/Battalion Wars game based on Heart of Darkness. I recently had to read Heart of Darkness for my AP Literature class at school, and that book really explores the horrors of imperialism, so why not mix that with a series all about war, conquest, and imperialism? This game would most certainly be rated M and have realistic graphics, serving as a showcase for the next Nintendo console at the time, well, maybe even the Switch, and bearing similarities to Call of Duty and of course Spec Ops: The Line, a game also based on Heart of Darkness. The player will be going on a rescue mission past enemy lines to save a colonel, based on Kurtz from the book, and once finding him, realizes that he's gone insane and taken control of the natives there. That colonel would be the main antagonist of the story, but the player would also have to fend off other countries' troops trying to gain control of the area, and over the story's course, realize the horror of what they are committing. The game could still feature over-the-top character designs and strategy that the series is known for, but still have a layer of psychological horror and a big focus on story on top of that. It would be played from the first-person perspective like Battalion Wars. For Pokemon, I'm thinking a Five Nights at Freddy's clone would be kind of funny and meme-worthy to see. The game would be called Pikmin Surveillance because that sounds like a name Game Freak would use. And the visuals would be realistic, so Pokemon would look extremely freaky like their Detective Pikachu movie counterparts. The player would be a member of Team Rocket as a security guard for the team base, but it's under attack by a heroic Pokemon trainer and their Pokemon. Well, heroic in quotation marks. This Pokemon trainer would be portrayed as more of a vigilante here, with their Pokemon being extremely violent and actually attacking and killing people. The security guard would be stuck in one room, but unlike FNAF, it could move around the room and have to go to different stations to check the cameras and close the doors, as well as feed the base's own legendary Pokemon so it doesn't attack him, reminiscent of winding the box for Puppet in FNAF. The camera system would be made more unique than FNAF in that the player would see the trainer's team of Pokemon attack and or eat their co-workers throughout the base. And what really sets this game apart is that the Pokemon attacking the base would be random each time. There could be about 30 different types of Pokemon that could attack, and each one has its own different pattern, making the game extremely deep and complex. Additionally, the game could have different bases to play in, each focusing on a different villain like Team Aqua, Team Flare, or Team Yell. And the legendary Pokemon you have to feed will also change depending on the base, with Team Flares, since it's in Pokemon Y, having Y Vital for example. Also, you could have a sort of Pokédex for which Pokemon you survive a night with, and you're trying to collect all 30. The death animations and jump scares would just be priceless, and alone, worth this game existing. Star Fox gave me a lot of trouble, but ultimately I think a Dead Space clone would work best here. The game would be called Star Fox Isolation, or Star Fox The Wrath of Andros. I had a real hard time naming this one, and I think it would definitely need to be rated M. The characters will all be grossified and more resemble the animals that they are based on. Think of the Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer. Star Fox, Falco, Slippy, and Peppy would be the only characters to look somewhat normal, but still more realistic, while Wolf, Andrew, Leon, Pigma, and a whole new legion of animals working for Andros would be disgusting and gross. The player would only play as Fox, and unlike all Star Fox games, there would be no flying sections, most similarly to Star Fox Adventures. The other members of Star Fox would function as NPCs that help in some combat, but not all of it as the game needs to focus on isolation. And I also think Slippy Toad can have a few escort missions. The gameplay would be that of a third-person shooter and take place on Andros planet, explaining the legion of his followers, with Andros, now an even more horrifying flying monkey head, serving as the final boss. The game could also feature a plotline where his followers have formed a cult, serving Andros and Fox needs to get rid of all of their camps/shrines. I kind of hope Nintendo takes the Star Fox series in a more mature direction, because right now, they are clearly not doing anything and keep falling back on remaking Star Fox 64. Finally, we have Earthbound, and this is already a horror series, so I'd just make a first-person sequel to the original trilogy rated M. I'm just gonna go with Earthbound Armageddon because the game would be focused on the end of the world, which the other games already sort of are. The game would revolve around a group of children who notice an alien invasion, the Starmen from the older games, occurring. The player's character has the PSI moves of Ness and Lucas, but of course controlled from the first-person point of view, and with their signature weapon being a hula hoop that they light on fire and throw out. I don't know, okay, I'm not that familiar with this series, I'm just trying to pitch something. And I think the first-person perspective could sort of function like Ghostwire Tokyo, in a way. Or Bioshock. The only character who I can think of returning would be Porky, since he's immortal, so no matter when the game takes place can be a scary boss for the player to defeat, or convince to join their side and fight off the Starmen's invasion of Earth. So, those are the 10 horror games that I would make out of Nintendo franchises. Like, subscribe, and comment down below your own horror Nintendo game pitch. Be on the lookout for more JM Comics Nintendo content. If I had to pick any of these games to come true, it would be either Star Fox Isolation or Pikmin Survive. Tell me which of these you'd want to see come true, or which of these you'd want a full video going over. Have a happy Halloween, and JM Comics out.